Hello and welcome to NewFilmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo. We're here at the South Park Center. I'm delighted to join with Connor with his movie, Wake. Let's take a look at the clip.
Are you sure you want to be alone today?
I'm not coming back, and I didn't want anyone to follow me out here.
Connor, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the NewFilmmakers LA family.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you for bringing your film. We've got so many questions, but for those that haven't seen it, tell us a brief synopsis.
Wake is the story of a young man named Cooper who, after his mother's death and her wake, he is overwhelmed by the community outreach and the care he receives from his small town. And so he decides to run away to try to live alone in the forest. But every night out in the woods, members of his community inexplicably sleepwalk out to him. And so he's, night after night, he's forced to try and figure out what's going on, confront his grief and his fear of connection.
It's a really, really great story. I think, you know, it's had obviously a lot of essence of surrealism, but there's obviously a lot of thoughts that go through when you're going through any type of loss or experience that's like a tough trauma of some sort. You know, really, really great, wonderfully acted as well. Where did this inspiration come for you in sort of turning this idea into a project and the way you wanted it to kind of portray?
The initial seed for it was this last scene of the film was a dream that I actually had, which is this image of an entire neighborhood sleepwalking onto the lawn of a house, and someone in the second story looking out down and seeing all of their community around them. And I was fascinated by that dream, trying to figure out what did that mean to me? What was that, you know, what did that represent that was going on in my psyche? I had that dream while I was at the American Film Institute Conservatory and decided to use that as the seed for what is my thesis film, Wake. And I took that experience and started to think about my own life experience when it comes to care and connection, and the sort of what I realized was an internalized fear that I had surrounding it, which came, I think, from my experience of helping my mom through her addiction when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I kind of became her caretaker, which I didn't realize wasn't the norm until I got a little bit older. But also she got sober the day I left for college, which I was obviously very happy about, and then thought about it a little bit more and wondered, okay, what was my role in enabling, in the caretaking? What did I do to help, and what should I have done instead? And I think that generated for me the idea that something so positive like care and connection and vulnerability can be the subject of a horror movie, can be fear.
Yeah, absolutely, because the horror sometimes is in the reality of one's experience. You know, well, firstly, you know, as I mentioned to you last night, I said, you know, always write down those amazing things that you dream about. Sometimes you never know what could happen with them, because I mean, goodness me, like that's such a vivid dream that you had, and then take that into your filmmaking experience. Wow. And then, you know, going deeper into your own personal experience, and then kind of relating that into this story of loss. Because you're almost kind of dealing with a different character when someone's, you know, either in your close one is you know, in the addiction or any form of anything. So it's sort of like you're experiencing something so different to what it is to when that person is changed or come through something. Now, these characters you develop, particularly the main central figure character, like, you know, I thought did a fantastic job. You know, it's not easy to take on a role like this, especially with all the sort of essence of hallucinations and these experiences of what's going on. How did you bring your cast together? Of course, you had a big ensemble because there was some scenes in there as well, but like, how do you go about bringing your cast together And what were you looking for in your main character?
Well, I'm very fortunate to be from a family of actors. I'm the only person in my family who doesn't act very often. Yeah, so the protagonist, Cooper, is played by my brother, Elliot Fletcher.
Yeah.
And that was obviously, the perfect choice for a story that is an abstraction of our own family personal experience, but has those roots there that he could easily draw on. And was lucky enough to work with some casting directors to get to sort of build our ensemble out, and also just some family friends, because a lot of both of my parents are actors, and they have lots of connections out here of people who are really, really talented. Maybe people who specialize in theater more so, but are always happy to come out and help the family.
And when you're working with, when you work with your sibling, okay, and obviously, how was that director sort of relationship and work with him, and how did you kind of want to work with him to sort of articulate his experience?
Yeah, I think I try as a director. I try to tailor the way I speak to an actor to their method, to the way that they work. So obviously, because he's my brother, we have a nice shorthand. We have this experience that we can draw on. But I also know that, it's best not to go in with 2 full paragraphs of explanation of the inner psyche of what's going on. It's better to go in to someone like my brother and say, remember the last moment that you saw this person. Remember the thing you had in your pocket when you were walking away from this conversation. Very small things like that can kind of trigger sense memory, even if it's imagined sense memory. I think that's one of my preferred ways to speak to actors, and my brother certainly seems to like that.
And it was again really great to see your film on the big screen, and cinematically it looked fantastic. The way it was shot, but also how you shot it, and also it was at nighttime, like not always the easiest experiences to. But how was it in finding your locations and the way you wanted it shot? How was that whole experience in the way you shot it as well?
It was a challenge for sure. I'm thankful that my team, which were all other fellows at AFI, are all extremely talented and extremely hardworking. But yeah, the process of going and night shooting in the forest was complicated. We got rained on for a night, which was terrifying.
Not
but
all that equipment too, hey?
Yeah, that was the real thing. We had a panic of throwing sheets over lights, and
goodness.
But no, we made it through, and everything.
Where did you shoot this?
We shot, the forest was in like a ranch in Santa Clarita.
Okay.
And the house was this beautiful, I guess it's a craftsman house in South Pasadena.
Okay,
in one of those neighborhoods in South Pas that's very sort of quaint and old feeling. Yeah, it's got a nice sort of small town feel, which is what I was looking for. God,
it's ironic because the rain has not been that, it's just been more frequent recently, but like it's in the last few years, but wow. And so obviously that creates challenge filming in the woods, but you did capture some amazing shots, and you kind of know, obviously you knew how you wanted it, but you kind of know the essence of the style you wanted people to kind of feel from it, because there was almost like, you obviously kind of almost had this like lucid dream kind of experience, and like, how did you want your film to be portrayed for our audience?
Yeah, we, working with my DP, Nathan Podshadley, we were very focused on developing a set of rules for the camera, and because we have probably like 30% of the film is during the day and like 70% is during the night. We developed rules that would apply to daytime shooting and rules that would apply to nighttime. In nighttime, we're never on a tripod, we're always on Steadicam or handheld, moving around, feeling a little bit less stable, a little more, not surreal exactly, but a little more floaty, for lack of a better word. And during the daytime, we wanted to have more of a sense of feeling grounded, feeling stable, and then as it progressed and as the protagonist moves through the forest for multiple days and starts to develop this exhaustion and hunger, we got a little more unstable, building into that last night in the forest.
I love hearing this because, as an audience member, as a filmmaker, we sort of, can understand, like, it's interesting these dynamics that you have to kind of almost play of the audience, but like, I think as an audience member, it's fascinating because you're like, oh yeah, like I can see why maybe I was feeling like this in this moment when you were going through this experience, because it's all in the camera shots. It's very clever. Speaking of which though, like how has this experience been for you on the big screen, and what's the reaction been like with the audience? How's that been for you?
It's been really cool to screen it at the festivals that I have, that we've done so far, and gotten a lot of really nice, really kind responses. A lot of people come up and say, I really resonated with that feeling. And I think it's more common than people realize to be scared of connection, to be scared of community and care.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people come up to me and say, well, what was, which parts of it were real, which parts of it were, imagined by the character. And I kind of love getting that question because I'm never going to give a straight answer. But to me, that's one of the things that's most exciting about film, in particular the way that you can play with perspective in film, is which is that if the character perceives it as real, it's real. I'm going to approach it as real as a filmmaker. I'm going to approach it as real with the actors. And if it's effective, hopefully the audience is so embedded in the perspective that they're also thinking, this can't be real, and then they start to get so dug in the perspective that they have to accept it.
I love it. I love the games you play with us. I love it. It's amazing. And just to kind of delve into the, I think grief's a really hard thing, and it's different for different people at different stages and everything else. And this particular character, like, it is overwhelming sometimes when you've got a lot of people who want to give you attention. You don't even want to be like lack of responsive, but it can be sort of overwhelming. Like, I know you said you got reactions from like certain audience members, but did you kind of want to just set a little bit of a tone for maybe sort of your own experiences, but also just like universally, like either A, if you've been through it, or B, if you've maybe, can learn from someone who has, like what that experience of grief can be and feel like?
I think one of the main things that I hope people take away from the film, even though it has elements of surrealism, and it isn't a direct portrayal of what it's like to go through this process. I think the main thing that I hope people take away is that it's the accepting care, as hard as that can be, is the first step. There's it doesn't have to be something big. It's just letting someone be around you in those moments, because I feel like, I can only speak for myself, but often my reaction to grief or to hardship is to sort of turn away from other people, to try and buckle down and figure out, like, how do I solve this myself? I don't want to involve anyone else. But the reality of the human experience is you need care, you need connection. You need to, at the very least, be able to share what you're going through with other people. But that's hard. It's harder than it is to just say it. But the first step is just like what happens in the end of the film. Just open the door. Just let somebody in. Yeah,
100%. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for sharing that, and I love all the kind of surrealism elements that you brought to that as well, because it's always great when you're seeing of a cinematic experience of surrealism on screen. You did it really, really well with all the things that you challenged us with as well. What's next for you, Connor?
Right now, I'm developing my first feature, and finishing up the next draft on the script.
Yeah.
Which is it's a body horror film called Leg, which is about a young man who, in trying to medically treat his anxiety, his leg becomes sentient.
I already want to see it. I'm right there. So you're developing that right now?
Yeah.
And I hope you're going to keep this in the family as well?
Yeah. Hopefully, if my brother has the time for me, if his agent gives me access, then totally.
Can you please give time to your sibling, please? Thank you very much. No, listen, Connor, well done. Thank you for taking us into the world of Wake, and thank you for bringing your film. And we're looking forward to seeing your next project, so thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Connor, everyone.